So let's go ahead and get into it. It's time for Marvel in the 60s. And of course, in honor of Sam, we're doing Amazing Fantasy number 15. This is the first appearance of Spider-Man by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. We're going to talk about the entire book here, because I had a Marvel milestone edition of this, and it reprinted everything, and I loved all of the stories in this book, and I've consistently always remembered those stories. So let's get into it. Starts off, there's Spider-Man right there, and one of the cool things you're going to find about this book is that in 11 pages, a fully realized idea comes up. There is, like, a lot of characters take time to really get into what they are and what the concept is and what's going to happen. Everything is present from day one when it goes to Spider-Man. Really great splash page here. Then you got Peter Parker. He's not good at school, or he's good at school, but he's not good socially at school, I should say. But he's got his Uncle Ben. He's got his Aunt May. They think the world of him. His science teachers think the world of him, but he can't get any kind of slack from the bullies, from the jocks, from the girls. He's always just getting left behind. Nobody thinks he's cool. And he's like, guys, I'm going to a science experiment. You want to check it out? And they're like, no. So he's at the science experiment. They're showing the power of radioactivity. A spider gets in the way. We all know this story. It's very, very familiar and just perfectly encapsulated here in just 11 pages. Ditko's work is amazing at getting this story across very effectively, very quickly. And the way that Stan's embellishing it with some of the dialogue is moving it across with a flair and a panache as well. So he gets bitten by the radioactive spider. He starts feeling faint. Even the scientists then start making fun of Peter Parker, man. He goes up. Car jumps up in his way. He jumps out of the way, finds out he can climb on walls. This kid sees him. His mom's like, I'm not taking you to no horror movies anymore. Finds out he's got super strength. He can crush this steel pipe. And then he realizes he's got the powers of a Spider-Man. Look at that 6th panel. Super awesome. Great stuff. Puts himself on a costume, decides to go and try to get $100 by lasting 3 minutes in the ring with Crusher Hogan. So he goes and starts his career as a wrestler. Totally takes him out. There's some skeevy guy thinking, how can I make money out of this kid? So he winds up giving him some money. Peter Parker goes home, designs himself a new costume. We realize that this is kind of aped a little bit from a Halloween costume that was available at the same time. There's Uncle Ben and Aunt May. He develops the web fluid like that, like super easy, not a problem. He even mentions that it's liquid cement, so whatever. But there it is. Looks great, right? That Spider-Man costume, he's there. He's a TV star. He's getting paid big bucks. He's making money. He's out there. He's getting famous. There it is. The burglar runs across. He doesn't help him. The policeman's like, why didn't you stop him? He's like, that's not my problem. That's your job. So he goes back home. Uncle Ben, Aunt May have given him a new microscope. He reflects how awesome they are. We get a little bit of a montage here. Spider-Man just keeps getting more and more famous. He shows up home one day. There's a police car out there. Turns out Uncle Ben has been shot. In a quest for vengeance, Peter Parker sets out as Spider-Man to confront the man who killed his Uncle Ben. And then, yep, it's the dude that he didn't stop. And he learns that with great power must also come great responsibility. One of the best, absolute best origins of a superhero in a comic book. But it's not done. So this is amazing adult fantasy for a while. And now in this issue, they change it to amazing fantasy. But what they are is they're all like Tales from the Crypt type stories where there's a twist ending. And that's one of the things that I think is key to understanding like the ending and the impact of this first Spider-Man story. So then we got the bell ringer. This is a quick little story about this dude in this town who always rings the bell so that like ships can make it home in the fog and all that kind of stuff. And then one day a volcano erupts and everybody's like, yo, we got to leave. And he's like, yo, I don't want to leave. I got to go ring the bell. And they're like, but nobody's there to hear it. And he's like, somebody's going to hear it. And then he gets sent up in a beam of light while it's happening. Like he's going to stay behind and die on the island ringing the bell. And somebody hears him. Somebody from space, somebody from heaven, who knows? Another dimension? Interesting story. This is my second favorite story. I mean, I almost like this story almost as much as the Spider-Man one. Man in the Mummy case. Oh my goodness. This one has stuck with me. So it's this dude, he's a crook, he's running from the police, he's trying to hide out, he winds up in this museum. All of a sudden, this fucking mummy shows up, okay? The mummy shows up, he's like, hey, man, I'm going to hide you. Just jump in this mummy casket. He's like, nah, man, I'm going to suffocate. He's like, nah, man, I promise. I'll open it up when the police go, and you can breathe. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Police show up, and they're like, well, maybe he's hiding in the case. They open it up. He's not there. Then they leave. Then the mummy's like, yep, you're not here. I promise I'd open it up, but there you go. And then look what happens. The criminal is now in ancient Egypt, and he's like a slave building pyramids or some shit. Bruh. I love this story. Look at that 3-panel sequence right there in the center by Steve Ditko. Absolutely amazing. These are all done by Steve Ditko and Stan Lee, by the way. So then we got this like fan page announcement where they're talking about how they're changing the name of the book. They got a new direction. They're streamlining the stories. They're going to have more Spider-Man. This was, in fact, the last issue of this book because they just did Amazing Spider-Man, took 2 of those Spider-Man stories and merged them together. You can already tell that they had 4 short Spider-Man stories ready, and that's what they did, was they just put 2 of them in each of the first 2 issues of Amazing Spider-Man. But it's really interesting to read this letter and this editorial and see like them explaining why they were going to change some stuff, and it was really fun. All right, then the last story is there are Martians among us. There's a ship that has crashed. These people find it. They're like, the Martians are here. We got to find it. News goes out. There's a mad manhunt for these Martians. We got this couple at home. Dude's like, yo, don't go out, dear. There's crazy Martians. And dude's like, I got to go out. I'll be right back. Hope we're good. She winds up out of something that she needs in the kitchen. So she's like, I'll go out. No Martians. Or she's like, they won't get me. And then she gets got. Right? And then the dude shows up and he's like, oh no, they got her. And he calls and it turns out they were the Martians. They look like humans but with 4 arms. And now he's like, now they're going to get me. So it's a nice little twist. But that is Amazing Fantasy, issue number 15, the entire issue. I showed you every single page and I talked about it. So there's more than just the Spider-Man story. The Spider-Man story is classic. Like I said, one of the absolute best superhero origins that we've ever gotten. The Bell Ringer story is okay. The Mummy story is amazing. And the Martian story is okay too. But I used to read those in the Marvel Milestone. And I just really wanted to tribute Sam here and talk about the very first appearance of his favorite character, Spider-Man. And also just reveal and talk more about what else was in this book. It's a fantastic revisit. I highly encourage you to pick up a reprint if you can. And this has been Marvel in the 60s. And if you want to know, my rating for Amazing Fantasy number 15 will be 5, you digs. Really like it. Where did I read it this year? I got the omnibus for the Amazing Adult Fantasy. This is all 15 issues of Amazing Fantasy by Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and Jack Kirby. And of course, the last issue is the Amazing Fantasy. But yeah, it's got them all. It's a really cool omnibus. It's a cheaper one, and it's really slender. It doesn't hurt my back when I read it, Verno, if you're still here. But I love this old school stuff. This is pre-Marvel Atlas Comics. Absolutely. And if you really want to dive deeper into it, Cartoonist Kayfabe did a video where they went into it. I've watched that a few times, and that was awesome. But yeah, that was a really cool omnibus. There's also lots of facsimiles and that Mighty Marvel Milestone edition. I have it somewhere. I got to find it one day, and when I do, I'll bring it back up. What do y'all think about the story, though? Hey, Mike's in the house. Says, I can't wait for your review of Lady Snowblood. I know that that's eventually coming. He should have done the right thing. Well, then we would have never gotten Spider-Man, right? Officially Unofficial Geek says, dude, that Mummy story is so like Twilight Zone. Exactly. No one ever listens when people say, stay there, there are Martians over here. We've learned that people won't do that. Well, haven't we? Oh, snap. Great omnibus, bro. Proud of you. Oh, thank you. Proud of me for buying a fucking book? I appreciate that, sir. A really cool omnibus to have, though, man, because I read that Amazing Fantasy 15 facsimile back from the 90s, the with the silver border, the Milestone. I read that so many damn times. I have never read the other books. I have never read any of these other ones, and it's like a lot of Lee, Kirby, and Ditko. So I'm really excited to dive into that. Of course, I had to start with the final issue. Brandon's got Omni Envy.